What's the fastest way to make $1 million?
I should create a class specifically for my teenage son. Hard money lenders, private lenders, they all have money and they look for really, really good players. Credit is like sugar. Too much of that credit is really just bad for your health. Like a loser that I was, 12 bucks an hour. It's like, what the hell? And then boom, your credit drops. The problem with American economic system is that I asked my 16-year-old son to come join us in our weekly Zoom calls when I teach people how to do real estate. He came to one and he's like, I don't want to go there anymore. I said, why? He's like, I don't understand anything. I said, why don't you understand anything? Well, it's just too complicated and not interested. So I thought to myself, and I'm so busy constantly running around doing deals. I was like, you know what? I should create a class specifically for my teenage son, Alan, who is right here with us today. Saul's son is here too. Hopefully this class will kind of give him an overall understanding of a real life monopoly. Alan, let me ask you something. What does money mean for you?
Buying things? Money means? Or investing?
3 to 4 years ago, we went and opened a bank account for Alan, and I was excited. I hope he's gonna put a lot of money into it. And just like anybody else, there's never money in the account because as soon as money shows up, it's spent. No problem. That's how naturally people do things. Do you have a bank account, Nick? You should open a bank account with your pops. When I was younger, I lived in Uzbekistan. We had 3 TV channels, 2 Russians, first and second, and 1 Uzbek. And half the time, it was just boring stuff. So there's no TV. There's also no internet back then. And there's no phones. So how do we spend our pastime? I used to play a lot of chess with my dad. And we played chess, but while we played chess, we spoke a lot about the world, about money, about capital, about investments, about everything, right? And so that was my quality time. Nowadays, it's so hard to find quality time with kids that we all struggle with that as parents. And then our kids get schooled by others on what's good, what's fun, what's exciting. And not always what they're taught in school is the best thing for them to build a life of financial independence. I have 10 episodes. We're going to talk about credit, debt, rules of money. We're going to talk about assets and liabilities. We're going to talk about leverage. We're going to talk about real estate investing, taxation, how taxes work, and all other relevant things that hopefully would be the first introduction into the overall game of money or real life monopoly that we all participate in one way or another. Whether you are a renter, whether you are a player, whether you are a banker, most people don't understand that there is a game going on and they never play the game. They go from salary to salary, they go on vacation, they pay their mortgage, they never accumulate real wealth. So basically, what do most people want? When I went to college to get a degree in finance. My number one job in going to college was very simple. To get a little piece of paper that said diploma with my name on it, so I can go to a big company like 3M or Anderson or some other very like corporations and get a job. The Crave job was for 70 to 80,000 in 2001. That was good money. And I could never get that job. I felt so unlucky. I got a job at a lending institution for 12 bucks an hour. So get this, everybody's graduating, getting 70, 80,000 offers per year. That's like 35 to 40 bucks an hour. And what do I get? Like a loser that I was, 12 bucks an hour. It's like, what the hell? Why did I go to college? I was making $18 per hour before, but that was the biggest and the most important turning point in my life because it taught me the banking system. I worked for a bank and understood credit. What people do is they get a job, they earn money, they buy expensive things. So you make $100,000, you have a nice car, you have a house or rental, you rent an apartment, you then get a mortgage, and then you stay in debt all your life. You can never catch up because you constantly borrow from your future self to pay for your current expenses. The problem with American economic system is that we are a consumer culture. And what happens is, if you're not careful, they'll load you up on debt first, as soon as you get credit, right? They'll, hey, take 10,000, take 20,000. You take the money, and then you want to spend the money because you don't know nothing. And then you go to France and buy a nice car and whatever. And then boom, your credit drops. You got to basically work so hard to pay that credit. And so we're going to talk about good debt and bad debt and how to avoid those pitfalls. So what do wealthy people do? The wealthy people, they use money as a tool. It's a tool for buying cash flowing assets. What are the cash flowing assets? That is stocks, Some stocks pay dividends or they appreciate. That is real estate. Now, crypto is another asset class people do. And most of the reason for you to invest in buying assets is to grow your pot of money. I read a book by, I think, George Clausen called The Richest Man in Babylon. 5,000 years ago, they wrote on tablets. They didn't have paper. Paper was invented by Egyptians 3,000 years ago. Before that, they would write on tablets and they would clay them and they would basically stack them. So they found this and they basically found the story of the richest man in Babylon. His name was Akkad. And how he was talking about 5 rules of gold. What's interesting is that 5,000 years ago, the rules that they applied then apply today. So what I'm talking about is timeless. There's no such thing as old school way, new school way. Money is money. You need to learn how to manage it, and you need to learn how to invest it, and respect the money. Number one thing I'll teach you guys, you got to respect capital. Whether it's your capital or your investor's capital, you got to respect it. The rich people always use leverage, and leverage is basically getting other people to give you their money so you can invest it and work with them. And then you basically reinvest profits. Now, you got to have some kind of lifestyle and pay your bills. And if you want to be a really serious multi-millionaire, billionaire type of investor, you want to remember 40-40-20 rule. What does that mean? 40%. So if you have $100, first 40%, assume you're going to give it to the IRS. It's your tax. Most people don't think about it. If you, like my daughter, Julie, made a lot of money, and then she calls me at the end of the year, or actually in April, she's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I owe IRS $20,000. So where am I going to get the money? I said, honey, if you make money, you got to pay IRS. What do you think? You can never avoid death or taxes. They're going to come for it regardless. So 40% goes to taxes, right? And then 40% you want to invest.
And does that depend on what state you live in?
Well, hopefully you live in a state where it's not expensive in the beginning of your life.
Doesn't Minnesota tax at 50?
No, Minnesota state tax is 10%, and your highest tax, if your highest earner, is about 37. But roughly 40% should be a good number. And then 20% is what you live on. Now, in the beginning of your career, it's really hard to live on 20%. But if you use it as a guiding principle down the line, when you're a top 1% earner, it's a very good rule to follow. And that's how you build massive wealth. That's how you become multi-millionaire. You guys played a Monopoly, right? Do you like the Monopoly game? There's also a cash flow game by Robert Kiyosaki that we also play, and it's a different type of a similar game. So you buy houses, then you trade 4 houses for a hotel, and then you got bank who will lend you money. You got rent that you collect for each time somebody steps on your thing, and then there's players, right? In real life, you do have rental homes, you got apartment buildings. Also with the hotels, which is a commercial property, what we do as a business, buy industrial real estate, we buy shopping centers, we buy office buildings, and they're all sort of, in my eyes, hotels. And then bank is our lenders. Why do I call them lenders? Because bank is a subset of many other lenders. There's hard money lenders, there's bank lenders, there's insurance companies, they lend money also. There's federal government through FHA, lends money. And there is government agencies such as Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. It's basically big organizations that lend money to people to buy houses and apartments. And then, of course, cash flow in real life is what you want. And then investors is who you play with. So imagine that your real life monopoly is basically comprised of this. Okay? So today's topic specifically, we're going to talk about credit. For you guys, you don't have a credit history right now. So what is credit? Credit is basically your financial reputation. America has a credit system. I don't know about Soviet Union, did not have a credit system. They didn't have the credit system. But in America, there's a credit system. And your credit system is determined by your credit score. So there's 3 companies that basically collect information from all the banks and lending institutions, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. These companies collect the data about your payment history and they'll report it back. And so when you go to banks or your credit card, you have a 30-day times to pay your bills. They'll give you money, they'll give you $10,000, and you got to pay their interest in 30 days. If you don't pay interest in 30 days and you're late, if you're 30 days late, they will report you and your credit score drops. You're 1 times 30 late. If you don't pay it for 60 days, it's a 1 times 60 late. Then if you don't pay for 90 days, it becomes 1 times 90. After 90, usually it might get to 120 days, or it might go into collection. If the lender gave you money and you got the money and you don't know anything about the system, and you spend the money, you go on vacation, you buy yourself a nice stuff, but you got to pay it back. You don't have money to pay it back. They'll give you the money first time because you're brand new, and then they'll ruin your credit. And your credit will be ruined. In the beginning, they'll give you like a good to very good, and it will drop to poor. Here's the problem. Credit is like sugar. You need it, but if you have too much of that credit, then it's bad for your health, for your financial health. So your scores are from 850 to 800 is A+, excellent credit. Second tier is A, very good, is 720 to 799. With some banks, they will give you a better credit, a better interest rate with the higher score. If your score is 720, they'll say it's 6%. If your score is 670 to 719, it's 6.5%. If you're 580 to 669, they might say it's 7.5%. And they will not lend you money if you are in poor credit. That's the other thing. There's different types of lenders. Some lenders will be more aggressive, and some lenders will be more...
How do you get your credit up if you're at poor?
So you got to pay your bills first, and you got to wait. And it's going to take time. You got to basically ask for somebody to co-sign for you, and you got to basically ride somebody else's credit. Now, here's also what happens. If you don't pay the credit, they will put you in a collection. And then when you're in a collection, people call you and harass you and try to get money out of you. And if you don't pay them back, they might sue you. And if they sue you, they will get what's called a judgment. And if they get a judgment out of you, then they will garnish your wages, or they will basically seize money out of your accounts through certain mechanisms. In other words, there's ways for people to get your money back if you borrowed money from them. Most people, when they get a lot of credit and they can pay it back, they declare bankruptcy. In the game of Monopoly, there's a bankruptcy. It's basically when you owe too much money and you don't have any money to pay them back. So bankruptcy is where you're basically done. You're not a player anymore. You got to go back to working for somebody and building your credit up. All the best players will have good or excellent credit. Leverage is using other people's money to build wealth. How do you get to work with other people's money? Well, other people's money is in fact debt. Is in fact your credit card debt, if you want to use it to buy buildings. It's bank debt, it's mortgage debt, it's partnerships, investors who will give you money. Anything that's not your money, it's other people's money. Your understanding how to work with other people's money is basically the purpose of this course, because as a player of this game, your number one goal is to be the best, highest credit borrower, pay back everybody so they come back for more. Okay, and they lend you more money. So there's two types of debt, you guys. You need to understand. Everybody's scared of debt. Nobody wants to go bankrupt, borrow, and go bankrupt. So there's good debt and there's bad debt. All right, the good debt right here, bad debt. So bad debt is the kind of debt that you borrow from your future self today to enjoy life. Like you like a bike, you like nice shoes or nice earphones. You don't have money to buy it. Is man, I'll just put it on my credit card. Guess what the credit card is? It's taking money from somebody else and then saying, oh, you know what? My future self is going to pay you. I'm just going to enjoy my life. Now, the future self is not going to enjoy it, because if you're on vacation today, now the future self has to work his butt off to pay this credit off. So bad credit is borrowing money borrowing money from a future self, okay? So with the bad debt, you buy liabilities. Liability is basically something that takes money out of your pocket. Liability is a debt. So bad debt buys you liability is a bad thing. Asset is a good thing. Bad debt also puts bills in front of you. You got to pay the bill. You got to pay the interest every month. Not fun to always have to pay it, but you enjoyed it. Bad debt is not against appreciating assets. It's against like if you buy a car. By the way, believe it or not, car debt is a bad debt. Why? Because you buy a car for, let's say, $50,000 and you borrow $50,000 against it. The minute you drove off that car lot, that car is worth $40,000. You're upside down on your debt. Your debt is more than your car. So if you want to pay it off, you cannot sell the car and pay it off. You got to bring money out of your pocket to pay it. So very important to understand, you want to borrow. So the good debt is the kind of debt that you get to buy assets that appreciate and create income. Appreciate means that you bought it today. Like if I buy a building today for $1 million, it's going to be worth $1.2 million in a year. And then in 3 years, it's going to be worth $1.5 million. What happens to my debt? If I buy a building for $1 million, I got to borrow $750,000 to buy it, and I put $250,000 down. Guess what? In a year, that $750,000 will drop to about $720 or so, but the asset is worth more. So that's a good debt. So that's how you build wealth. And your wealth is inside those assets, inside the cash flow, and other things, okay? There's two types of debt: unsecured debt and secured debt. So secured debt is the kind of debt where the lender has a collateral. The collateral is a house, a car, a commercial property. Sometimes you can collateralize a deposit. You can say, look, I'll put $10,000 on deposit with you. You can collateralize it, and then you can give me a credit card against it, so I don't have to touch my money. Unsecured debt is credit cards and personal loans. They have high interest, usually 18, 22, and 28%. Why is the interest rate so high? Mainly because it's a high-risk debt. Because if you don't pay it, they have to write it off. And so they try to collect as much as possible so that if, let's say, 10 to 15% of the people don't pay, they still get a good return. So secured debt is a debt that's secured by an asset but that you bought, right? By like a car loan, home mortgage, real estate loans are all secured debts, because if you don't pay your car payment, the lender will repossess your car, and then they will sell the car and recover their money. Home mortgage, same thing. If you buy a house and you live in the house and you don't pay the mortgage on the house, then in 60 to 90 days, they'll start a foreclosure and they'll take the house, and they'll kick you out. They'll call the cops and say, get out of here. It's not your house anymore. And they'll take the house and they sell it and recover their money. So security is, secured means security in the property where they protect their interest they protect their money. We do a lot of real estate loans. Every time we buy a property, a lender will give us 75, 80% of the purchase price, and they secure it with a mortgage, and they sign a note, and we sign a personal guarantee, so that if in fact we don't perform on this note, we don't perform on the mortgage, don't pay the mortgage back, they'll take the property back, they'll sell it, but also because we signed the personal guarantee, they'll sue us if there's any kind of a deficiency. Let's say they gave us $750,000, so I bought a property, I put $250,000 down. They assume that they will sell it for at least $750,000. Hopefully I did a good job buying the right property. But if they sold it for $700,000, they will sue you for $50,000 and say, look, you owe us $50,000 more, and that's where your personal guarantee comes in. Let's say you borrowed $100,000 on multiple credit cards. Right now, credit cards are out of control. They'll give you as much money in the beginning as possible to enslave you. Basically, credit cards is a way to enslave you to work for them. Because what happens is that $100,000, you pay them $1,833 a month, and if you don't pay them back, your credit's ruined, you're gonna be kicked out of the Monopoly game. Nobody wants to get kicked out, so you pay it, and then you gotta work harder to pay that off. Never get credit card debt. If you buy credit cards, by the way, if you have credit cards, you wanna use them for convenience. They'll give you some points and whatever. So you use them, and then at the end of the month, you pay it off. Do not carry credit card balances for a long period of time, because it's a robbery. It's a very, very high interest rate. Now, remember, on the credit cards, you got $1,833 a month for $100,000. Guess what? Mortgage is called good debt. Guess what your payment is? $100,000 at 7%. Mortgages are not 22%. They're 7%. Yeah, they're 30-year mortgages. They give it to you for 30 years. Look at the payment.
So on a $100,000 house, you pay $665.
On $100,000 for the house, like there's no $100,000 house anymore. But let's say you buy a house for half a million, $665 per month per $100,000 you're gonna pay. 3 times cheaper than your credit card. You see how it's like this is a good debt, cheaper debt? So I want to go into a vocabulary so you understand all the terms, okay? So amortization. Amortization is basically a reduction of debt schedule. So let's say you buy a house for $100,000 and you have a $100,000 mortgage on it. For 30 years, there's 360 months in 30 years. 12 months per year, 30 years, 360 months. Every year you pay interest, and then your principal balance keeps dropping, and this schedule of principal balance dropping is called amortization. So between amortization of debt and appreciation of your asset, that's where you build your wealth. Collateral. You guys know what the collateral means? Yeah. It's basically a property or a car you put as a collateral to get a mortgage, a secured note. Mortgage. Mortgage is from the French word mort, because it dies when you pay it off. So mortgage is a document that they sign and record at the county, showing that unless this thing is paid off, you cannot sell the house. You got to pay this off first, and then the house is yours. That's why they say the banks really own the properties, because unless you pay them off, you don't own it. So note, what's the difference between mortgage and a note? People get confused. Mortgage is a collateral security document. It basically puts a mark on your collateral and saying you cannot sell it. Note actually talks about interest rate, your term, your pay down principal, and some other those other things. Okay, so note and mortgage are basically go hand in hand. Every time you buy a house, they'll give you a note, they'll give you a mortgage, and they'll give you a personal guarantee. And you sign all three, boom, you get the property. Secured, you guys talked about secured. It's basically, that's how you secure your money against the property. So if I'm a lender, and I lend money sometimes, that's not my main business, but if I lend money to somebody, I secure that by the mortgage on the property, and I have them sign a note, and then these documents I keep as my collateral, so that if they don't pay me back, I'll sell the property and get my money back. So lenders, there's different types of lenders out there. When you hear the word lender, I want you to think banks. Credit card company is a lender. Insurance companies do a lot of lending. There's private lenders. Private lenders will give you money at a higher interest rate because they will do unconventional things. And there is government lenders. There's also community banks, and there is a credit unions. They also do lending. Okay, so lenders love lending against real estate because of the security that it provides, and especially if the real estate goes up in value and they lend you money, their collateral gets better and better and better with each year. If I borrow money against a property that's worth $1 million today, and I borrow $750,000, real estate produces income. Most of the investment real estate that we buy, and I want you to learn to buy, it produces income. Real estate produces rental income. You collect rents, right? It increases in value over time. Why? Because of inflation, because money loses value. It's used as a collateral, and it also creates tax benefits. So the biggest mistake young people make is they focus too much on lifestyle before they focus on building wealth. Okay, they like expensive cars. I remember when I was young, I really wanted a BMW, $30,000, but I bought a Camry for $12,000. And I wanted a BMW, but I couldn't afford it, so I just drove a Camry. But my friend drove a $30,000 BMW 3 Series, and it looked really, really, really awesome. But expensive cars is first thing. Credit card debt. What's a credit card debt? Oh yeah, I got 10 grand in the credit card. I'm just going to spend it. I'm going to worry about it later. I'll figure it out. I'll go win a lottery.
Why do cars depreciate so much and houses depreciate?
Cars, because they keep producing newer cars, and cars are not attached to land, and they depreciate. The properties are appreciated because demand for housing increases, population grows, and there's finite nature of land. Land does not grow. A lot of people flex online with nice things and expensive watches and whatever. That's a mistake, in my opinion, because you don't ever want to spend your earned income. Remember the 40-40-20 rule? You got to be extremely disciplined in the beginning of your life and find a way for your investments to pay for your lifestyle. If you have your investments pay for your lifestyle, you technically exited the rat race. Rat race is basically you with a whole bunch of other rats. Yeah, you basically all run for food, and you can never escape the race. And so the way you escape the rat race is by building passive cash flow that pays for your lifestyle. And that's ultimately financial freedom. So if your passive cash flow is about $20,000 a month and your expenses are about $15,000 a month, you are financially free. And that's the goal. The goal is not to have a lot of money and have expensive cars. Your goal should be to have enough assets to cover your expenses so you can be free to do whatever you want. And ultimately, freedom is the ultimate winning of the monopoly game is to achieve financial freedom. So game rules are very simple. Income that you generate needs to be invested into the assets. Assets need to create cash flow, and then cash flow should pay for your freedom and lifestyle. The problem is people don't buy assets, don't get cash flow, and they go directly to spending it, so they never grow assets, and that's how they never build financial freedom. They use their income to pay for their lifestyle. So one thing I want you to learn is that you got to respect money. First of all, you got to respect your money. But second of all, even more, you got to respect other people's money. Because if you remember that concept, leverage, how do you get, people say, well, Rafik, how do I play the game? I don't have any money. How am I going to buy these houses? There's people out there. Their whole business is to give money to people like you. Credit card companies, banks, lenders, hard money lenders, private lenders, they all have money, and they look for really, really good players who are going to respect them, respect the money, and work with them. So your goal is to have a really good credit history, understand how to play the game, meet up with those guys who want to work with you, who are looking for you. They actually pay for marketing. They pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for you to see them, so you can call them and say, hey, give me money, Pine Financial. Hey, give me money, Wells Fargo. Hey, give me money, Vision Bank.
So you are a private lender?
I am not a private lender. I do lending every now and then, but I'm actually the borrower, and I buy assets, and our investment company buys buildings, and we do value-add investing. I will cover that in the next class. So money is a tool. Remember, I asked you a question in the beginning what the money is for you, and you said money for spending, all the good answers, but the wrong answers. The way I want you guys to see money is as a tool for freedom. Don't use money as a way for you to spend on things. Homework. Check how credit scores work. Okay? Learn the difference between assets and liabilities. You can use ChatGPT nowadays. Ask your parents. Well, in this case, you can ask me. You can ask your dad. What is your mortgage rate on your house, and what is the payment? Car payment. Do you have a car payment? What's the car payment?
Isn't the interest usually 7%?
So interest rates go up and down. And right now it's about 6 to 7%, depending on the credit. But 5 years ago, interest rates were stupid low. No, it depends on the time, because interest rates go up and down. The rates were at 2.7, 3% about 5 years ago. Now they're about 6.5 to 7. They're all tied to treasuries, which is an instrument that the government publishes. Ask your parents about credit card rates. So that's basically the presentation about the credit, presentation about the Monopoly game. Next class, we're going to talk about assets and liabilities and how to build wealth. Do you have any questions about this, by the way?
As a teenager, would you recommend not getting a credit card at all?
Get a credit card with your parent, who's hopefully a responsible person in the relationship. Because when he co-signs with you on credit card, then you build your credit score. Because here's the problem with this system. If you don't have any credit, you can't build credit score. Because they want to see how responsible you are, how disciplined you are. So you need to have, they call them trade lines. Trade lines is how many debts do you manage. You need to have at least 3 trade lines to show them that you're a good borrower. And so that could be like a car loan, small car loan. It could be credit card loan, credit card or 2. And eventually when you become 19, 20, you buy a house. And when you buy a house, you can have a mortgage payment. Like my daughter bought a duplex. And what's beautiful about duplexes is she lived on one side and the other side paid her mortgage. So that was an amazing setup for her, because now she doesn't have a housing payment to cover. So that's what I would say. But whatever you do with the credit cards, remember, you got to pay it off within a month. So don't ever borrow money if you don't know you can pay it off.
What's the fastest way to make $1 million?
Like if you want to make $1 million quick, you want to graduate a real estate class. You understand how the real estate works. Because anywhere else it's so hard to make $1 million. But for example, I'm buying a building right now with my friend Sol for 1.275. I found a deal. We found a tenant, and we're going to spend $200,000 on it, and we're going to sell it for $2.5 million. We're going to make $1 million on one deal in 6 months. How do you make $1 million? First of all, learn the game, understand how this is played, and then be close to somebody who can spot you with capital or credit. See, when I started out, I didn't have any money, and one of my friends, older guy who was about 15 years old, and he was kind of a mentor figure, he's like, Rafik, I like you. I have a lot of money, and you're a real estate guy. Why don't you go find some deals, really good deals, And if the deals are good, I'll give you the money. You fix it, do whatever you need with it, and then when we sell it, we'll split the profits 50-50. And that's how I started my business. And so now, today, I have a bunch of young guys. I provide the capital. They run around and do the deal, and we split the profits 50-50. And so if you find a property that can make $2 million, and I'll provide the capital, you can make $1 million in that deal. That's Rustam right now, my brother, is doing that. On this one deal, I think we're going to make $2 million in 6 to 12 months.
Is it a good idea to borrow your parents' money?
I think it's a great idea, as long as you pay it off.
Would you give me money to lend?
I would lend you money as long as you pass the course. Then I know what you're doing. I know that you know what you're doing.
What's going to be my interest rate?
So I don't really lend money. It's against my religion. But I'll partner with you, 50-50. That's what I do.
What have you bought that has appreciated the most in value?
My second deal in commercial real estate, I bought an industrial building for $1.8 million. And today that building is worth about $6 million. And ever since I bought it, 6 months after I closed on it and fixed it up, it was making 15 grand a month. If you guys do a deal like that right now, find a deal like that and do it with your dad. Your dad is a really good finder of deals. You could literally do one deal, and that deal will ultimately make 10, 15 grand a month. And you don't have to really work hard. You can just do whatever.
So do you still have it?
I still have it, yeah. That property is still in our portfolio. I'm actually refinancing it right now. I'm going to try to do a $4.5 million loan to pay off some of our investors. My loan is going to be at 6%, my investors are 15%. That's the loan I'm doing right now. I owe $1.7 million on it. The property's worth $6 million, so I'm trying to get $4.5 million of debt against it to pay off some of my other investors.
Wait, so what are you doing with that building other than?
It's are we collecting rents, paying bills? It's a rental. It's a 55,000 square foot industrial facility with multi-tenant industrial facility.
How much money are you collecting a month?
From that property? So that property generates about 50 grand of rents per month. And our expenses on it, I would say 25, 27,000. So it makes about $20,000 to $22,000 a month of cash flow after all of the expenses, that one property.
And is it one person renting it or is it multiple?
I think we have 17 tenants in that building.
What's the biggest mistake you've made on a deal, and how do you avoid these mistakes?
Partnering with the wrong guy, the wrong person is a really big mistake. So you got to be very, very careful with whom you partner. I think that was one of my biggest mistakes. But also borrowing more. When you over leverage, when you borrow more than the property can generate, and if you make it as a practice, it can actually create a situation where you become, it's called insolvent. You cannot pay the payments. For me, that happened in 2008-9. Not exactly because I borrowed more money, but I had a lot of loans, but the real estate dropped by 40%. And so that caused me to have a lot of financial hardship. Partnering with people is how ultimately you can leverage and build wealth. Because remember this, real life Monopoly is a multiplayer game.